Hi, I'm Rob Catlett, and I have a grievance.
Let's see.
A grievance or
Yes.
a dispute? A dispute is something that is bothering you that someone else, you feel like someone has done something wrong.
So grievance would be a formal complaint. So I think we should start with a dispute and just talk it through. And we'll talk to you, and then we'll also talk to the person that you are having a disagreement with.
Okay,
Try to reach some kind of agreement.
that helps.
Okay.
My dispute is about the assignment that I got for next semester, for the spring semester.
When you say assignment, you mean, what do you mean by assignment?
Good. Sorry, I shouldn't use the good. That's a good question. The courses and the times that I've been assigned
Okay.
are unreasonable. What my chair has assigned to me is inappropriate, and chair has no right to do this to me.
Can you tell me why you feel it's inappropriate and wrong?
I don't want to teach these classes, and I don't want to teach them at the time that the chair has scheduled.
Have you visited with the chair about this?
No, it's just wrong, and it makes me so angry I can't even speak.
Can you tell me what you feel is wrong about it?
Well, there's two things that are wrong: the assignments that I've got, the number of preparations that I've got, the times of the day. So one of them is I'm teaching 4 different preparations in 4 different buildings in back-to-back, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1. And I'm going from one building on one end of campus to another building on another end of campus. I don't have time to set up. I don't have time to prepare. And these are things that are not within my specialty. It's just crazy. My chair is a lunatic. My chair is nuts. My chair hates my guts
Okay.
and is trying to punish me.
So you feel you're not qualified to teach the courses that he's assigned, or she's assigned?
I don't know if qualification is appropriate here. I have the proper credentials to teach the class. It's just that I haven't done any research in that area. Haven't taught the class in decades. In fact, I've never taught the class, so it's a brand new preparation. And 3 of the 4 of these are brand new preparations for me. So it's just a nightmare of a semester. My chair hates me. Time out for coaching.
I think you guys did well. I would always at the very beginning emphasize the neutrality, because the person may not understand that. So you want to say, we're here to help solve or resolve the problem. I'm not here, or we're not here to side with either side in the dispute. Make an emphasis of that at the beginning. But otherwise, I think the questions were very cogent.
You know, I gotta step out of character from it. Your questions were excellent,
Yeah.
right? Probing me as to what's going on here and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question now. So as the Ombuds person, I mean, I disagree with everything that you're saying, because who hasn't had a semester like that? That's part of teaching, is you would take on new tasks.
Right.
So I'm having trouble not tossing in my opinion on here, like, come on, man.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what you have to avoid.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
really
And I
is-
was just saying, that was what I was trying to.
Yeah,
I was extremely-
because you don't want to give any direct or even indirect indication that you might be either siding with or siding against any of those sides. Even if you
That's
do,
where
believe it, because you will have an opinion, and you will too. In the end, especially. And that's when you have to just really hold yourself. Where there's one of the things about controlling yourself, that's where the ombuds person has to, as much as possible to their own personality, keep the appearance of neutrality. Even if internally, you're not neutral.
Of course. If you want to coach him on your multiple interpretations next, I don't know what you think is best to.
Yes, he said that he thinks the chair hates him, and apparently he thinks the chair hates him, and that's why he gave him those 4 back-to-back in different parts of campus. That's where you might probe about what are other possible interpretations
Okay,
for
yeah.
why that schedule
Yeah, I just hadn't
is
gotten to
given
that
to you.
yet, yeah, that's right.
Because it might, if you can bring at least one other interpretation out of the grievant or the disputer, that opens up a little bit of room for flexibility. If they think there's a possible some other reason besides the chair hating him.
Where I was gonna go was have you talk to your chair and possibly there's a reason why, have you got into the reasons why the chair is scheduled it this way? Have you
Yes.
pursued that with your chair?
And there might be,
Discussed
you know,
it.
good reasons.
Yeah.
And it might turn out that even if he just discussed this with the chair and said, I can't make it back and forth,
That's
the
right.
chair might
He
make some arrangements.
may not realize, oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, that's clear over there, we gotta figure out something.
So in that case, you'd have to say, well, if you haven't talked to the chair, why not? That's the usual first step.
Yeah,
And then clearly the reason in this case was he thinks the chair hates him,
yeah,
which makes it difficult for him to go to the chair.
right.
And
It can be very complicated.
And I got just one comment about the emphasize neutrality thing. And you said to him, it sounds like to me that you're not right because that we've all got to do that.
Yeah.
You could say, I think a lot of faculty would say they've been in the same situation and they
Okay,
did their
right.
job. So why is this any
That's
different
better,
or
yeah.
worse than?
Yeah, that's
than-
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better, yeah, what you're saying, that's a better.
So use examples other than your own.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
Even though that it sort of gets your idea across.
And if you say, then he may come up with a new layer of reasons that shows you more why he's talking.
Now, he was mad as hell, but he didn't look mad as hell to me.
Yeah, I had a hard time ratcheting that up, I'm not a good actor.
Some have come into me when I've been an ombuds person, so angry they can hardly speak. I mean,
Right.
literally, they can't get their thoughts together. And then you know the first thing you have to do is calm them down. In this case, you didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, well, let me try to ratchet it up.
And one other thing, and I may be saying this just for my own, at the first, we need to explain the difference between a dispute and a grievance and claim that what we want to do is mediate before it gets to a grievance.
Yeah.
Another thing you could ask the person is, have they read the policy? And what you would do is when you know they're coming, you'd have a copy of the policy on paper ready to hand to them. Because they
I
probably
would
have.
assume that you knew the nature of the dispute ahead of time.
I think you can assume anything from them or anything from yourself. You just have the policy as a whole ready
You mean
to
the,
give.
you mean the policy of the faculty?
In the UPM,
Oh.
University Policy
Okay.
Manual, you can download parts of it, you can highlight
You
the
wouldn't know
parts.
what the dispute is necessarily ahead of time.
Doesn't have to know,
Okay.
but that way then they can see the process, because all that does is
Oh,
show
yeah.
the process.
Okay, all right.
It doesn't
Okay.
specify different disputes, it just shows the process.
Okay.
Because most of the people that I talked to before they knew there was an ombuds person because the faculty senate has a list of them, but they didn't read the policy.
Yeah.
And so they would be grieving things that can't be grieved. For example, in this case, one of the few autonomous powers that chairs have is to make assignments of classes and times, courses and
I thought
times.
they could.
And they can basically assign any course that they want to. Now, you can dispute it, but we've recently, in my own department, had a case where the faculty member disputed it. The faculty member was told, your credentials allow you to be able to teach this course, even if you have to do a whole lot of prep beforehand. And this course needs to be taught, the chair has assigned it to you, you need to do it. So, there's certain things that you could tell the person that are facts, and that's a fact. Other things are, somewhat judgment calls, but at least things like that are facts, you could relay that back to the person.
So let's have this a multiple choice thing. I'm gonna make up stuff, just complete fabrications. So one of them I wanna go through is, let's say a highly emotional one. And so you're gonna ask me, why do you think the chair hates you? So just go ahead and ask.
Why do you think the chair hates you?
My chair has made sexual advances towards me and I've rebuffed those.
Ouch.
That's where you, that's where you
Takes it to
desperately
a
need.
different level though, doesn't it?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
At that point,
Yes.
you're required to report it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You're required to report it to HR. Now, I'm not necessarily jump up and do it right then and
Right.
there, but you tell the person, you know, now that I understand that that is part of it, there's a process that I have to do, and that is to report to HR.
Okay.
And so that at least gives them a little bit of warning that that has to come.
Mhm.
And at that point, then, it's really, it has to go through HR.
Part of it does.
That part does.
The,
You can still work on other parts.
the discrimination part goes through HR, but the dispute resolution, still, you can still
go
do it.
on.
Okay.
But anything related to that has to be told to HR. Either discrimination, racial or otherwise, or sexual things, either one of those have to go to HR.
So would we have to ask them to write that out at that time? Or do we have it just reported to HR and HR takes over the?
We report it and HR takes over, but
Okay.
I mean, I feel more comfortable myself telling the person that since that has been brought up, I have to now report it, so that way they're not like
Yeah.
surprised if they
Right.
start to get a call from HR.
Right.
Now, that may rile them. They may say, oh, I don't wanna do this, I don't wanna, and then you say, I'm sorry, but I have no choice. You know, you could lose your job if you don't do it. I mean, I guess potentially.
Yeah, you're acting outside the scope of your responsibilities if you don't report it. You're a mandated reporter of discrimination. Discrimination against a protected class or group. So if somebody says, my chair's discriminating against me because I'm a better teacher or not as good of a teacher, that's a different kind of discrimination. But discrimination based on gender, race, ethnicity, any of that kind of
Things like
stuff.
that.
National.
Just like K through 12 teachers are mandated, if they see bruises that are terrible,
Like those.
they have to report.
You have to.
Yeah.
You cannot do otherwise. Okay, so, you've told me that you're gonna report it, right? And so let me ask, how long ago did this happen? Just go ahead and ask me.
How long ago did this happen?
20 years ago. Okay.
Okay.
So then you're gonna say, okay, you got, you know, this has been 20 years since the last advance. Now's your cue to entertain multiple interpretations, right? So you're gonna ask me if there's other kinds of things that might be going on here.
Are there other kinds of things that might be going on here?
Well, it's a relatively small department and we don't have very many faculty. I know that we have a shortage of faculty. So that's one of the things that's going on.
So you could use that now to come up with a possible other interpretation of why he was assigned those courses, besides that the chair hates them. You could use the idea that, well, you're overworked perhaps, but probably everybody is overworked since it's a small department and you have to do these courses. So there could be another possible interpretation as to why he was assigned those particular courses and that particular order.
Go ahead and ask me. What else could be going on?
What else could be going on?
Well, I'm not sure. One of my colleagues, I think, just because of the physical changes, the loss of hair and that kind of stuff, maybe going through some cancer therapy or something like that. Another colleague has had emotional breakdowns and I kind of suspect has seen the counselor and that kind of stuff. And the students have been irate with another professor. So it's possible some of that is intervening in this. That, it's possible that my chair is assigning me these classes because of trying to take the load off of somebody else. It's also possible my chair is trying to get me to resign. You know, this past sexual advances that I was not comfortable with it's made me uncomfortable for a long time. And I think my chair may be increasingly uncomfortable because my chair is single and unattached and I know desperately wants to be with somebody.
Time out. I know where I would go with that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would say, most of what you're telling me are assumptions that you're making, or feelings, or ideas that you have about a situation, and not necessarily based on fact.
That's exactly right.
Okay, that's what was my thing to say. but I didn't know that.
And you can say that by saying, you know, people from the outside
Okay.
would say,
Yeah,
I'm not hearing any facts here, I'm just seeing speculation.
yeah, that's.
But remember, they're supposed to be exploring multiple interpretations, right? So you're not necessarily, you know, ideally you'd like to have facts, but you want to hear if that person can come up with any other alternative explanations. So you're walking a delicate line here, trying to get them to explore those multiple interpretations. In some ways, you give them a lot of latitude. If any of them start to resonate, is there any way that we could, any way it can be documented, anything like that, without being threatening to? Go ahead,
I think that's just, what time is it?
3:30, we've got 10 minutes left,
Yep,
right?
nope, that's what this is telling me.
Okay.
It's just a little.
Okay. Then, so we've already been through that, we're gonna expedite this. But why in all these different, why 4 back to back to back in different buildings when there's plenty of space available in our department? If I had to do it, I could be in the same room, I wouldn't have to go to try to change my setup. Why is this person sending me to Beach Music Hall, then down to the HPER building, then to Plum Hall, and then down to Dissert?
Is it typical that your faculty would teach in multiple buildings?
No, this is the first time.
Would you be happy if you could have those 4 classes more closely together?
My ideal circumstance is to teach 4 sections of the same course. Okay? You know, I want to teach 4 sections of the same course. I want to minimize my effort here. And I want very few students in each section. Yeah.
Now, if we would look across campus, we would see a lot of people have to change buildings, they've got multiple preps.
Right.
I really feel like now I would say, okay, let's stop for now, and I'm gonna visit with your chair and share some of these things with your chair. And, you know, because my job as ombuds person is to talk to both sides, and so I'm gonna visit with this person next. And
Right.
we'll talk again soon.
Before we visit though, would you please go ahead and write out what you're saying and what you're feeling and some of the possible alternatives that you just talked about?
What, didn't you understand what I said?
I did understand it, but it would
Then
help
why do you want me
me.
to write it? Isn't your memory good enough?
No, it is not good enough.
Okay.
I want your interpretation, not mine.
And you tell him that you'll take this to the other person. So
Okay.
it wants to be, state all, in you know, priority order, all the points without the emotion.
Okay.
And you're gonna take this to the other person so that it's their best chance to have the other person read something that's really nice and clear without the emotional overlay on it. So you wanna tell them.
Would it be, something to do would be to say, if you want me to look at a draft first,
Absolutely.
then let me share with me draft.
They may even ask you to do that, but I would offer that.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah, I would too.
Now, when he said that, they were all in the same building, you know, all back to back, he sort of opened up a possible solution.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
So you might say, would that ameliorate your feelings if you could get them all in the same room? Because then you could present that as a possible solution to the administrator, the chair.
Let's switch roles just because when that's going to. No, it's fine. We're doing great, I think. And you handled that extremely well because I got combative with you.
And I think that, Paul, you're right. From what I heard, now's the time to say, okay, let's go to the chair and get something else.
Okay, so, hello, I'm here, what do you guys need?
Well, we have met with a faculty member, faculty X, and this person has some concerns about this person's class schedule and the class course assignments. And so what this faculty member, would I identify the faculty member?
Yes.
Okay.
You're going to have to.
Faculty member X says.
You'll say his
Is
name.
unhappy because of the assignment of 4 different preps in 4 different buildings, and some of them are back-to-back in terms of time. And so, this faculty member used the word grievance at the beginning, but we have indicated that this is not a grievance yet, it's just a dispute. So we're here to listen to your side. If you have any ideas, can you give help us understand why it is that the schedule was put together that way?
Oh, hell. That guy complains every time we set up a schedule each semester. He never likes the assignment, he never likes the time, he complains about the classroom all the time. So it's nothing new.
Okay, so the complaint is though that he has 4 different preps in 4 different buildings, at some of them back to back, is that correct?
Well, I think so. I think he teaches back to back, but all of our faculty have, most of them anyway, have several classes back to back. So we're not singling him out.
So this was not an unusual situation for
Not